Good afternoon. We are going to talk about professional development modules. My name is Tammy Malone Wallace, and this is for EDUC 633, Principles of Design and Management. We're going to go over two different modules. The first one and the lesson that we'll do is on the ADDIE model. This is the one that is most used and most prevalent. It contains, as you can see, five different sub areas. First step is analysis. Second, design. Third, development. Fourth, implementation. And fifth, evaluation. So when we look at designing a course, we want to go through these five steps. First step, and as you see in blue, the analysis. That is the first step in the ADDIE model. It's the major task is to clarify the instructional problem. Well, what are you trying to solve? Establishing instructional goals, goal analysis, and subordinate skills and entry behavior analysis, and learning environment and learner analysis. You're really doing a basic needs assessment in this. Why are we doing this course? What is the demand? What is the need? The next step, we're going to get into design. And this is where we start talking about the objectives. What is it that we're going to establish as the objectives and assessment instruments? And how are we going to identify the instructional strategies? And how are we going to teach the course? What media would we might need? Moving forward to the third step, that is development. The major task in the development stage is to create the instructional materials according to the blueprint. So when you go and you actually begin to design the materials for the course, you're going into where you've already done a needs assessment, you've already talked about the objectives that you want to meet, and now you're actually developing the course and putting all the essential materials and all the essential components inside of the course. Now we go into the implementation. Well, what do we do here? And this is where we really want to get some feedback. We want to make sure that we have actually indeed taught our lesson. It is to teach the lesson to the target audience. So you're actually going to take what you have developed and you're going to go and teach the course. And you're going to get back feedback from your audience. And that's going to give you very powerful information as you go to look to modify or revise the course. Did it meet the needs of your learners? And lastly is evaluation. And this is a really critical component. You want to make sure that you are using formative evaluation and summative evaluation. Of course, formative being what you're doing along the course. Are your users on task? Are your users understanding what you're teaching? Are your users utilizing the materials in the lessons? And then summative is, of course, at the very end. Did the course actually meet the need of when you did your analysis, needs analysis? Did it meet it? And that's a constant revision. As you see, as it's in a circular process because you'll continuously do that to make sure that your course is indeed in the instructional design meeting the needs of your learners. The second module we want to talk about is 4CID. And you'll see there are four components to this one and not five. And when do we use this? Well, the problem, especially in technology, is that there are a lot of complex lessons that need to be done, such as like in programming or computer science, that just following those five components as we looked at the ADDIE model may not necessarily reach to the critical thinking and to the higher level that we need it to reach. So let's talk about the four components: learning task, supportive information, procedural information, and part task process. So let's look at our first step, and that's the learning task. We want to, of course, just like we did before when we looked at the objectives, we want to look at, well, what are we trying to do here? What are we trying to teach? What are we trying to get to? What do we want the learner to know when they get done? So you're aiming at the integration of skills and knowledge and attitudes. You're providing an authentic whole task experience. You're organizing easy to difficult tasks in the class. And that's very important to do because you want to make sure your order of how you're explaining and teaching your items meets the needs of your learners. And then we want to show a high variability of practice. So let's move to the second one. And here's our procedural information. Is there any prerequisites? Are there things that our learner needs to know prior to entering in the class or our coursework? Are there maybe some step-by-step instructions we need to in order to perform these routine aspects? And we want to make sure we're providing just-in-time learning during the work, and especially as it maybe frustrations rise, we want to make sure that we are providing the expertise so the level of frustration does not uh, gain into a high level. Supportive information. As we go along, are there other items, are there other materials that we can use in placing inside of our course structure and our instructional design that can support as we move forward in the objectives of the class? And you want to make sure, of course, that these are always available to our learner so that they have something to go back and look upon. And this supports the learning and the performance. Lastly, part task practice. Of course, you want them to have that opportunity to go in and do the actual task. We want them to implement or go in and actually do what we're trying to have them do. It's at a very high level. There's a huge amount of repetition, and it starts, of course, whenever we have done the whole entire task. So we've talked about two different modules, and one was, of course, our ADDIE model, used very, very often and very frequent. And we saw that our 4CID model was used, of course, to in higher order in very complex task of course design. It's a different method we could use or a different design model. Here are the references that you see, and the references, of course, were used and seen along the way on each of the slides. And have a great day.